Well, hello, my name is Mark Hutchinson with Arch Audio Recording Studios here in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and welcome to our podcast. This is a new podcast that we've started that will share information for artists, producers, writers. If you're in the music industry, we're going to talk about it on this podcast. And today we have Chris Wallace, who is a very accomplished artist, writer, producer. I mean, does everything from the X Factor to, smaller and bigger. And you'll find out about the bigger here in just a minute. But Chris, we appreciate you. We appreciate having you here.
Hey, thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. I thought we would start out by, letting you tell your story. How did Chris Wallace's journey begin?
Well, I grew up in a small town called Hebron, Indiana. Probably about 15 to 20,000 people that live there. Super small, 100 people in my high school. And, I went to a Chubby Checker concert when I was a kid. And I remember standing, looking at the stage and just thinking to myself, like, I think it'd be really cool to do that. And he was doing that. So he's like a 50s artist or 60s artist. And he did that song, The Twist. I don't know if you heard it.
Yeah.
And I just remember looking at the crowd and seeing how happy everyone was. And I was like, I think I want to do that. Like, whatever that is, I want to be involved in that. So that was the beginning. That was the first seed in hindsight. And, I started playing guitar and bands and all that stuff. And I just, we didn't have a singer in the band. So I was like, well, I guess I'll try that too, and we played the Boone Grove High School talent show.
Oh, yeah.
And, we got 5th place, I think, was the so that was the beginning of the journey. And that was the initial seeds. And in hindsight, when I watched those videos and stuff, it was not good.
Oh, yeah.
But it's honestly, I still have the video, and I'll put it on every once in a while, just as a nice reminder of how far you've came down this road. And so yeah, I just started just dreaming in my small town, and I was in college. Fast forward a few years in bands here or there, and I decided I wanted to start kind of making my own songs because I was in bands. So I downloaded this program called Reason, and I made this beat in my dorm room. I was going to Purdue University, and put it on MySpace at the time, which was the only social media
You're
at the time.
dating yourself there, buddy.
No, no. I mean, it's been a long journey, like.
Yeah.
At this point, like, I'm proud of my age, like, because it's it's a reminder of how far I've come, and I put it on MySpace, and overnight I woke up the next morning and it had a few thousand plays, and I was like, what is going on? Who are these people? And it turns out people were adding this song that I produced and just kind of put on as a joke to their profiles. So then people would find out about it. So it kind of went viral on there. And fast forward a few days, every major label was calling me saying, who are you? What is this? What's going on? And me, like a fool, actually, I made a fake image of the band, and it was 3 silhouettes is what I wanted to make, because I wanted to make a band, but it was really just me. I made the song in my dorm room, and that song, it just blew up. So the labels were like, oh, we'd love to come meet the band. Next thing I know, Epic Records was calling me. This dude Brett Garowitz was calling me. He had signed the band The Offspring and all these cool things, and I'm on the phone like, what is happening right now? I'm like studying for a test, working a part-time job, just like, is this reality, And then fast forward, I took the meetings and I put together a quick band real quick because, it was just me,
Wow.
it was really just me, and I put together the silhouette. So I was like, hey, you're the best guy in town and you're the other best guy in town. And we all took some meetings, and fast forward a few years and I was signed to Epic Records. And I thought the journey was over there, but it actually was just the beginning. Because then I was like, oh crap, I only have like 2 songs. I need to make an album now. Like I signed a record deal to do an entire album. So we ended up, just kind of putting together an album piece by piece by piece over maybe a good 6 months or whatever. But then that album came out, and it was time to tour, do the whole dance. And, fast forward another year from there, we toured and did small tour after small tour. And then we ended up finding this girl. Actually, I heard it for the first time on MySpace and sent it to my manager. And he actually ended up knowing, I think, her manager, but it ended up being Lady Gaga.
Wow.
So and it was before she blew up or anything like that. And we actually connected at Lollapalooza randomly because I'm signed to BMI, which is a performance rights organization.
Right.
They collect all your royalties, like if you get a song that plays on the radio. So I randomly met her at a BMI brunch right before Lollapalooza because she was playing there, and I think this is 2008. And we just kind of connected, and like I think I got her phone number. And so basically, she ended up inviting us on her first headlining tour, and this was like we booked the tour. And then her first single, Just Dance, started blowing up. I was like, oh, this is going to be huge. And then, the tour was in March. I think this was like November or something like that. And she had another #1 single, Poker Face, I remember it was. And then she had another one. And then I'm like, oh, this is going to be huge.
Yeah.
And then they started changing the size of the venues. And I'm like, wow, this is really blowing up. So it ended up being the moment.
What was the name of your band?
Everything blew up. I was in a band called White Tie Affair.
White Tie
Sorry, I didn't
Affair.
reference that yet.
No, it's what kind of music?
It's like pop rock,
Yeah.
I mean, at the time, I was a huge Panic at the Disco fan, so I was like, I want to do that. Like, I want to do like electronic blended with heavy guitars and strange lyrics.
So you went from being in a dorm to writing a song, putting it on MySpace, and then you end up on tour with Lady Gaga.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a lot of luck and a lot of good things just kind of come together all at once. And that tour, once we kind of booked that, we started getting a little more success, and Epic Records started doing a radio push with our song Candle at the time. And it was like we would go to radio interviews like this, and like we'd be with Gaga, and so it kind of, I think, added to the cachet of the group and everything. And we, it was just this kind of windstorm. And then, that tour ended. It was a month, and some of the shows were so big we ended up doing 2 shows a night, which was kind of crazy. Wow. I had never done that.
Yeah.
I was exercising for 1 show, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah.
I gotta take care of my voice a little more and all that stuff. So
then how did you go from that to producing and writing and winning awards?
Well, basically I did that, and then the band toured and got, we ended up doing some headlining tours and selling out big venues, and we had some great success. And then the label Epic Records got a new president. And I remember we took a meeting with the president, and it was after we had our first hit, and she just didn't get it. I remember we sat in the meeting. She said to me, so like, what are you? I remember she said, she's like, are you Justin Timberlake or are you Fall Out Boy? I remember she said that to me. And I was like, I don't know. I'm both, I guess. I don't think I'm really one thing. I think I'm just whatever I feel in that moment of writing and creating. So, but, that was kind of the dividing line of like, maybe the band ain't going to work anymore, because like our label and all the team just weren't understanding what we were going to want to do. So, in hindsight, that was actually the straw, actually, the like that rift between the label. So yeah, then the band eventually broke up like about a year later, and I decided I was going to start a solo album. So I moved out to LA and started making my own album, and then ended up going independent this time because I had some issues with the label.
Right.
So I was like, you know what? I'm not going to like make them be able to dictate my decisions in my career. I want to just do it independently. So I ended up releasing a solo album and having another, top 15, top 20 hit with that. And then that label fell apart too. So it was like, whichever direction I went, it seemed like it was kind of a means to an end of just like, we had one successful single and then started pushing another one. And then one of the heads of the label basically left. And then the label's like, sorry, we don't have any money. We can't do any more anything.
Wow.
And this was after another successful, gold single basically. Right. So it was just an interesting journey, and it really put a bad taste in my mouth for just being an artist altogether. It really kind of knocked me down, and almost made me stop believing in myself, which that's the annoying part about it all. Because like, if you don't have that, I feel like that's the fuel in the tank, especially in the music industry. If you don't have that, you almost have to be insane to want to go through the ups and downs that the music industry is, because all the odds are just always against you.
Right.
So your job is to just keep trucking through and keep believing even when no one else does. So basically that made it to where I was like, you know what? I don't want to do the artist thing. I don't want to do the traveling thing anymore. It's just like, maybe I'll just start writing songs for other people. So I, did that, ended up with a really cool indie publisher who got me, connected with up and coming artists and all this stuff. And fast forward a few years, I figured out how to produce. I didn't really produce that well. I figured out how to write lyrics and write songs for other people and try to get in their head and figure out what they want to sing about and what they want to write about. And me being an artist for so many years just informed all that, because I would sit down with these artists and be like, what would I have wanted the producer or the co-writer to pull out of me?
Right.
So I started working with these people, and I would, I would do research on them and see what they're going through, see what they're posting about online, to be like, okay, he just went through a breakup 3 months ago. I would go down those roads.
So you were cyber stalking is what I'm hearing.
Kinda. Well, I don't. It's just one of those things where I think I'm obsessive over it, and I want, like, if someone would have did that to me, they would have pulled these cool ideas out of me as an artist. So
is that how you got the X Factor stuff? I mean, how did all that happen?
The X Factor just it came from a few years of success and writing and producing for other people. But my dear friend Matt Rad, who's I'll give him a lot of credit for me becoming a great producer and writer and all this stuff along the journey. He believed in me early on, and he was just like, dude, you could do this, like, and he had already kind of done it. So he had a few hits with One Direction that he produced, and he basically was friends with all the people in that world. So Simon Cowell does X Factor, and that's how One Direction came about. So it was that was the connection for X Factor. So it was just basically the people that were producing all the songs for the people to perform. Basically, it's they were. The people had been doing it for years, and they were going to stop doing it. So then they ended up reaching out to my friend Matt, and then Matt's like, "Dude, you want to do this with me?" Because it's basically like on Monday morning, you show up and they do this thing called routining, which is they kind of like sing some piano vocal songs to figure out what songs they want to put on the show for the artist. It's figuring out what songs they want to sing and how they sound with them singing it. So they would basically on Monday morning send Matt and I a batch of 8 to 15 songs.
Wow.
And they'd be like, here, so can you get these as soon as possible? And we were just like, what? I mean, I remember the first week we're like, I think it was 12 songs. I think we got the first week, and I'd have to go back and look, but it was like I was a pretty good producer by then, but that by the end of doing that show for 2 months of just like 5 to 15 songs every week, to have to basically do full productions of these minute-and-a-half songs, it really it turned me into like I was a good producer. It turned me into a great producer. Right. It was almost like boot camp, to where you had no choice but to make great stuff, because you're going to produce this song that someone has to sing to tomorrow in front of the entire world.
Yeah.
And then after that, they're going to release that song onto iTunes and Spotify and streaming. So it was like, it forced you to mix better. It forced you to make quicker choices and stuff like that. So
you worked with Meghan Trainor too, didn't you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, through the journey, I'll get calls from my publisher or manager, and they'll just be like, hey, do you want to work with this artist or this up and coming thing? Or, and sometimes it's established artists, sometimes it's new artists, you know? And this one, this one day it just so happened to be Meghan Trainor. And, we actually had worked on a song before for this Latin group called CNCO. And it was another X Factor Simon Cowell connection. That was his Latin boy band. They're kind of like a Latin One Direction, I guess, that he had done on this show. I think is called La Banda is the name of the show. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, but and they're doing a remix of this song called Hey DJ, and they needed an English translation, so and to update the production. So me and Matt Rad ended up doing that, and we ended up writing, some English translation, and Meghan Trainor ended up being the person to get the call of like, to do it. So that's how I got connected with her initially. And the song ended up actually being like a pretty big streaming hit, and like big in Europe. It ended up being a pretty big crossover song. So that's how I got connected with her. And then subsequently we like connected really well. She was really impressed actually by the way we edited vocals, because I guess she's a really good vocal editor, you know. I don't know if you've seen those viral videos of like Ariana Grande editing her own vocals, and it's, you know, it's impressive because it's to me, vocal, you know, it's the most important part of the song. You know, it's like it's the part most people hear. You know, they'll tap their foot to the drums and sing along with the vocals, and then the rest is just the music to most people. They don't think of like what's being played, you know, like a guitar or a keyboard or piano. People just in generally don't really think about that, I feel like. So she was impressed by the way that we edited her vocals. You know, she said something like, oh, you can't edit vocals as good as me or something, because she wanted to do it herself as she recorded it. And we're just, you know, we took that as a challenge of like, are you sure?
Yeah.
You know, so it was, I think we actually connected on that. She's like, okay, I'm impressed. And then she's like, we got to work some more. So we ended up writing some songs for her next album or whatever.
You know, I would ask you how many songs you've written that have been, you know, picked up, or how many people you've produced for, but quite honestly would be here till tomorrow. You know, there's a bunch.
And also, the problem is I wouldn't remember half of them. I'd be like, oh yeah, I did work with that, you know.
So what I wanted to bring us to, I mean, you've won, multiple awards. You've got platinum albums, gold albums as a producer, as an artist, as a writer. I mean, in just about every way imaginable. But let's talk about the most recent ones, and we'll just pull them up on the table here.
This thing that's been knocking my knees here.
Yeah.
All right, this is the newest.
So, yeah. So, tell us. Well, this kind of brings us to Arch Audio.
Yep.
I think we were introduced by a mutual friend of ours, Chris Schmidt, who's going to be a presenter or a guest on the podcast here in a few weeks. And he introduced us, and you started coming to the studio here, started writing in the studio and producing in the studio, coming down from Nashville to Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Yep.
So tell us about your number one in the world.
So this song right here, you know, I don't even know where to start about how to become number one at the world at anything, but this was my first of all the things I've done. The largest thing I've ever been a part of, and this song was, you know, my friend Jez and I got the call. You know, I had done some Japanese pop records and some rock records here or there, and you know, a friend of mine, Jez Dior, called me and was like, yo, do you want to help me finish this K-pop record? And the song was, you know, 80% there or whatever, and they just wanted, you know, someone else's touch on it. So we ended up finishing it, writing the lyrics on the song Nice Guy, and you know, fast forward a few weeks later, it was number one. I mean, we were here working on Jez's record, and when we got the call, so we're like, all right, let's just finish it while we're here. So, you know, we came down to Chattanooga, and you know, it's funny. I tell a few friends, I'm like, well, we're making Tennessee-made K-pop. That's what we're doing here.
Well, yeah, it's a big deal for the studio to have you here, and to have, you know, anything done here that reaches number one in the world. I mean, you know, we couldn't expect anything or want for anything greater than that. So, you know, I can tell you from Arch Audio, we really appreciate you coming down and letting us be a part of a little tiny part of your success.
Well, this is just the. The awards sometimes for me are they're just kind of a reminder of the journey, you know, because I think all of us, you know, when you do anything, you have any kind of accomplishment, you're just thinking of the next accomplishment. You know, you're not thinking of how far you came or what this means. And, you know, so I like the idea of getting the awards and getting the little reminders in your life to remind yourself of how far you've come. Yeah. You know, and a lot of my friends they don't do that. They're like, I don't want to put all these plaques on the wall and this and that. And one, they're actually not good for sound quality because they reflect the sound. So it's actually not great for in a studio, but it's great as an inspirational reminder of what you can do. Yeah. So, you know, I'm almost like, I don't like looking at them either, because it's almost it's a reminder, but it also casts a little bit of a shadow.
Yeah, you know, It's it brings us to what I was hoping you could talk about to our viewers, though. I mean, you talked about going viral,
Yeah.
right, yourself, and that was back in the MySpace days. And
Yeah.
for the 20-year-olds watching this, you're going to have to Google it because
Yeah.
MySpace was the original social media platform out there. But how does an artist today release music in this big internet world? Back in the day, you had to have a label.
Yeah.
And the label did all the marketing and all the pushing and, made it happen. But today, you don't really need a label. And in fact, you've had more success on your own after getting out from the label. So, give us your tips and tricks to, releasing songs without a label, because, from your story alone, it's not always the best idea to get signed with a label.
No, I mean, at this point, it's like, it's honestly, it's ideal really for the art itself. It's just, the cool thing, I mean, and what I do when I work with artists and when I work with up and coming people and talk to them, I tell them, like, as you're making something, maybe share it with the world. Share like a version of it, share like a clip of it or whatever. So maybe you could get some instant feedback, because, funny enough, the first song that I ever ended up getting signed with, the song Mr. Right, I remember I made it and I played it for my cousin. And he'll say it to this day. He still swears that it's the worst song he's ever heard. So I showed him, and that was the feedback I got in person. And he's like, bro, I don't get it, man. I just don't like it. And I remember I'd perform it live, and it was kind of a running joke of like, he just hates the song, Funny. And I remember I played my family, and they're just like, I don't get it, man. So, but then I put it online, and the people decided it was a song they wanted to like and share. So it's like, put yourself out there, and you never know what people are going to think of this random thing that you did. So, as I create things with artists, sometimes I'll be like, you know what, why don't you just turn the camera on and make a little TikTok or something about us making this song right now? And if you'll get some instant feedback, and if it's positive, maybe dig a little harder on the song, and sometimes you don't even have to finish the whole thing. And that is one way. And there's certain songs that are instant hits. There's certain songs that are growers. So that's not always going to be the case when you're making art. So it's nice to tease songs and play it for people and see if someone's going to like it. But also, if they don't like it, there is this world where you can dig a little harder, and maybe it's just the grower song of yours, but sometimes you need that. You need to keep releasing songs until you get that kind of virality to get the attention, and then you could release your grower songs, your ballads or whatever songs that maybe take a little more to digest, So, I think of it as like maybe like fast food. Fast food's designed, you drive through and you could eat it on the way home. But some food you might need utensils for, but it doesn't make it better or worse. It's just different,
So so you've got this, let's say an artist has a song written, they get it produced.
Yeah.
It's a great song. They put it out onto the internet. Well, so does 20,000 other people per day, or about 20,000 songs per day are released out onto.
I think that number keeps growing too.
Absolutely. So, how does an artist stand out from all the rest, the other 19,999 out there?
I mean, I guess I think of it as like, if this was 30 years ago and the internet didn't exist, how would you become an artist? People would make flyers. They would do, I guess, whatever it takes to make it. You would busk. People would play open mics. People would get in front of people however they can. So with the internet, it just makes it so you don't have to leave the house. But it's the same idea. Your goal is to make your art and show people, and hopefully people like it, and you could eventually create a career off of it. I think the fundamentals haven't changed with the internet. The access that anyone can do it has, but I think the trick to just anything is like, do something, fail, learn from it.
Right.
Do something, fail, learn from it. You know,
Keep
and
moving.
The trick is to just keep moving.
Yeah.
Because the people with the real longevity just don't stop. They just don't take their foot off the gas or know when to pump the brakes and relax for a minute and not push so hard. You know, so you could regroup and learn from all your, you know, the stuff that hasn't worked yet.
So I heard you talk about Jez. Of course, I've met Jez.
Yeah.
And, worked with him here in the studio. And he's releasing the songs that you guys have worked on his album.
Yeah.
Which has been here as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I see him on TikTok like 3 times a day, 4 times a day with the same song, but he's doing visually different stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us about, I mean, what's the platform that you suggest can make the biggest impact for an artist today to do that kind of stuff? And what would you suggest they do in that like fashion to get out there and constantly bombard the internet?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a lot of guess and check to me. You know, and obviously you know, video content is just it's just easier to digest over like a picture with some music playing behind it. Like that's just not gonna grab someone as much as the person who made the thing, you know, either pantomiming or, you know, doing some kind of acoustic version of the song that they made. It just, you feel it more. You know, you get the video aspect, you learn them, you see their mannerisms. So, you know, creating reels and TikToks and, you know, all that stuff is it's just a part of it. But like, I think a lot of artists I work with don't like the camera part. You know, they want to be you know, back in the day, it was like you could be an artist like Prince or something and just release a thing and then go in the shadows, you know, and it's not really like that anymore. Like you can't do that as a new artist. You know, you might be able to eventually do it later in your career, but when you're first starting, you just kind of have to put yourself out there and see what works and see what people react to, you know? So, you know, it's basically guess and check, is create content, try to find your own lane, you know? I mean, you know, there's even some artists I know that it's like some of their content that's like, oh, they love to cook. And it's like, they'll somehow incorporate them cooking while they're singing along with their song, you know?
Well, that's a different audience
and then
set, right?
Somehow it becomes a meme, like the, you know, Reba McEntire song, the, what's the single mom who works 2 jobs? You know, like, you just never know what people are going to do with your music. That's the interesting thing about it. It's our jobs to just make it and put it out there, and hopefully someone hears it and wants to add that to their content. You know, that's how I think you get actual virality nowadays. It's like you put the thing out and you know, the right TikToker, the right, you know, YouTube person, whatever, hears it and they're like, you know what, I'm going to add that to my video because it works in the context of what I'm making. Right. And, you know, a lot of times you basically that's what starts it, you know.
So if you had to pick one thing, I'm only going to give you one thing you have to do to filter out through the noise of the internet, what would you suggest? What's the most important thing an artist could do? I didn't pre-ask you that question, did I?
No. I'm just thinking because it's, you know, I mean, I'd say, and it's like a stock answer, but it's like, be yourself and put it on the internet. Because it turns out people like you, you know, like you could have a great song. You know, say you have a great song. And this is something Lady Gaga said to me. And, you know, I hate to name drop. I hate to think about it. But she said it to me, and it has resonated ever since she said it. And we're sitting on her tour bus, and she was flipping through like a tabloid type of magazine, and she was in it. You know, it was like her, you know, early days of her walking through a thing. And I was like, wow, that's so sick or whatever. And she's like, you know what the trick is, Chris? You got to be bigger than your songs. Mm. You have to be bigger than your songs. Yeah. So you could have a viral moment and you could have a song start to take off and you get millions of streams, whatever, but it's up to you to keep that party going.
Right. Because the next one may not be the same.
And that's the thing is there's, you know, whatever 30,000, however many thousand songs are released a day, trying to all jockeying for that same viral position, you know, and your goal should be to keep going. Yeah. You know, like, and even if you have that viral moment and get 1,000 fans there and you got to go back to making 1 fan at a time, that's fine. Because long term you're building, you know, you're building this house, you know. Yeah. Well, I one stick at a time.
I would sit here and talk to you about this stuff all day long, but I guess we've got to go. I don't know how long we've been here, but I really enjoy talking with you, and I appreciate you sharing some of your insights into what an artist has to do, because there's thousands of artists just here in Tennessee alone, much less around the world. So we hope that our viewer audience that's seen this video will share it with your friends, share it with other musicians, share this podcast so we can grow. And we're going to talk with Chris some more on some other podcasts about writing and other things that we hope that he can help you with. So thank you for having us today in your home, and I hope to see you again here at Arch Audio Podcast.